Hey everyone, hope you are doing great. In this video, we will go through step-by-step guide for implementing unit testing for the React Native user demo app we did in this playlist. Firstly, we will need to set up the testing environment, and you can use Jest as your test runner since it's widely used in React Native community. We can add Jest package through yarn dash dash add yarn add dash dash dev just and click enter to install the package. Next step is add a configure file to just configure Jest to work with Expo and Jest native library. Let's create a config file here and call it jest.config.js. Here we will type module dot exports, and we will need to specify two things. First one is preset, and here we will specify just Expo. Second one is setup files after env. And here we can specify the testing packages, which is called testing library /just native /extend expect. There's a typo here. Module.export, this is statement export an object that contains configuration options for Jest, and preset Jest Expo tells Jest to use Jest Expo preset, which includes the necessary configurations options for testing an Expo project. And regarding to set up files after env, this is specified that Jest should run the extend expect functions from the testing library /just native after setting up the testing environment. This function adds additional matchers and methods for testing native element in React Native apps. So we can say that these configurations setting are commonly used when testing React Native apps with Jest and Expo. They help ensure that Jest can probably test your app and provide you with usual feedback during development. Now it's time to initialize the mocks, and we will have a couple of mocks here. One for use get users query and one for delete query. And how we can actually create the mock, we can, in the root of the project, we can create a directory called __mocks __ and click enter. After that, we will initialize the first query we have, which will be get users query. After that, we will define the first query, which is use get users query, and name it use get users query.ts. And if we go back to user list, we will find here that we need to mock these properties. One for data, is fetching, is success, is error, and refetch. Let's back to the mock. And do export constant. Use get query users query. And here we can directly say jest.fm just function, and we will mock these properties. We will mock data, and the initial value will be empty. Is fetching, let's set it as false. Is success, was null. And for refetch, we will add just the function. By adding this is just this could define a just mock function for use a get users query hook. The mock function returns an object with the following properties with data, as fetching, as success, as error, error, and refetch. By using this mock function in your gist, you can simulate the behavior of the for user get users query hook without actually making a network request to fetch the user data. This allows you to isolate and test the components that depends on this hook without worrying about external dependencies or network latency. So now we added the user get users. We will need to add another one for delete mutation, and we can call it use delete user mutation. We will do a little bit same functionality, which is export constant use delete user mutation, and we will use just dot function, which is fn. And we will mock this one. It's back to user list. We will mock this one. We have a function, we have these properties. It's back to here. And here we can do something like this. First thing, we will declare the function with just .fn. And after that, we will define the properties, which is loading, is error, set error with null, and is success. Now we add a query, a couple of queries, one for delete and one for get users. The next step is just to start with testing the functionality, and we will not cover all the scenarios in this video. We will just have a couple of scenarios to just know how exactly we can use just to testing the functionality or just rendering the components on the screen in the right way. So now we can add the directly testing folder. We can add it in the root of the project itself and call it underscore underscore tests underscore underscore. And in this folder, we can add all the testing files we need to add it here. And we can create the user list test file, call it user test, users, user list dot test dot tsx. First thing we need to do is import the mocks we created. So here we can import the mock API hooks. So import use get users query from the mock file, and also import user delete mutation from the mocks folder. What we can test now, we can start with testing if the user list is rendered correctly or not. We can do every test cases and start with describe to describe what exactly we are gonna to do. And we will, if you remember why we developing or coding the user list, we added a test ID for user list. Now we can use actually this in unit testing. So now to add a description, we can add that is wealthy users list. And here we use it. And this, we need to provide a couple of things. First things is the name of the unit of the test element we need to apply the testing on it. And second is the provide callback. We will know what exactly we do it here. But for the name, we already know that we can name it like description, like renders the list correctly. Second one is a callback. Is a callback function. And here we can pass first things we need to mock the get users query hook to return some data. How we can do it? We can do it like this. Use get user query. We need to specify this as just mock. So as just dot mock. Dot mock return value. The idea here is just using get used query and add some mock value to path it to the flat list or the list, which will help us to make sure that the user list if the list is rendered correctly or not. So here we just need to add some mockup data. We can add like this, for example, ID added 1, first name, we can add any mock data. We can add another element, any name. This is for the data. Other things we can do is fetching. And for this, we will set it as false. And for S success, we can add it as a true. Since we will test this already, because it's done successfully. And for error, it will be false. And for refetch, it will be this function. In this step, we add the mock the user get user query hook to return some data, as we see here. After that, we need to render the component and get user element. And how we can do this, we can define like this. We can define a constant, and inside here we can get by test ID, the one here. So let's do a get by test ID, and here we will render. And for render, as you remember, that user list component is wrapped by the provider. If you go here, it's wrapped by provider, which is take the store. So we'll need to apply something like this. Provided. So we'll take the store. And before we proceed with this, we will need to install another package which will help us in the unit testing. This library is called React testing library React Native. It's added and elaborate what exactly this library will help us. So we can add this library with yarn add --dev testing library backslash React native. And this is a testing libraries that provide utilities for testing React Native components and application. It's built on the top of the popular testing library family of libraries, which promote best practices for testing user interface. And if we need to know some benefits of this library, it's improved test reliability because it provides a set of testing utilities that encourage writing tests, and also it's faster development because automated testing with this package can help you catch issues earlier in the development process and reduce overall development time and costs. Also, it's better code quality, and by writing testable code helps ensure better code quality as it encourages developers to write more modular, reusable, and maintainable code. Now, by using render from this package, we can import it from there. Now, if we try to import render from this library. Also, we need to import the user list from source user list. Actually, it's like this. Now we can proceed with this unit testing case. And now we need to define constant, call it user list, and use this get by test ID and type the ID which we added it here, user dash list. After we define the user list by getting it by test ID, now we can use expect the user list dot to p30. If we just need to recap this description, this test case, we can say that this code is a unit testing for the user list component. The purpose of this test is ensure that the user list component rendered correctly with the provided mock data. So the first step we did here is to mock get users query hook using just check.mock method, which allow us to control the data that the hook returns when it calls with the user, like we did here. After that, we use next is the user list component is rendered inside the provided component with a store, and the store is likely, as we discussed before, is a Redux that manages this the application state. And after that, we define it or the gets the element by get by test ID, and finally this assertion here is made that the user list element exists by checking that it's truthy using just expect method. For sure, this will not be the only case. This is the only case will be covered here. But if we also can add another testing cases for anything like checking the placeholders in the search bar, testing functionality of delete, search, and all these stuff. This is why we need to add before each function. And this just functions that allows to run some code before each test is a given describe block. So before every describe block, this function will be run before it. In this case, for example, we need to clear the hook, which is user get user's query and use delete user mutation. And since we didn't implement user delete user mutation here, we can just get rid of it and implement the clear use get user's query. And we can do it in this way. Just define the use get users query. And as we mentioned before, it will be as just.mock clear. So here, before it will, the code written here will be run before it. So it will clear the get users. And the purpose of this is to ensure that any changes made to these mock functions during one test don't affect the other tests, like clearing the mock before each test. We start with a clean state and can guarantee that each test is independent of the other. Now it is time to run the unit testing, and to run the unit testing we can run this command npx gist, and this command will run all the unit testing in the project. Like if we have, for example, user list item here and another testing file and testing case, will run all this stuff. And as you see here, the test is total 1 and 1 pass, and also the name of this one which was rendered the list correctly is added here and passed successfully. What if we have several files and we need to specify specific file to run the unit testing of it? We can do it by npx gist and specify the name of this file. For example, this one. By applying this command, it will run a specific test file instead of running all the testing files. To recap what exactly done in this playlist, we create a user listing screen and create a custom search bar component and added a separate component, a global component, which might be used all over the app. And also we implement the style and we add the style in separate files to separate the design. After that, we discuss how we can actually integrate the RTK, which is Redux Toolkit, into our project and use the benefit of use the query of this to fetching the users from the endpoint, and also apply two different query like get users query and delete mutation. And also we implement pagination, filtration, and go through how actually initialize the unit testing, how we can set up the configuration, and how we implement the unit testing cases, how to run it. I hope that this playlist be useful, and if you have any feedback, please share it with me, and we can exchange the information with each other. Thanks for watching and have an awesome day.